Welcome to a conversation about peace, part of the World Miracle Peace experiment. I'm your host, MarBeth Dunn, and I am thrilled today to have with us Ava Charlotte Larson Ruiz, but she goes by Ava Charlotte, and she has studied and taught with healers and shamans and masters from many different traditions, and among those masters was Don Miguel Ruiz, author of The Four Agreements. Welcome, Eva. I am so thrilled to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be with you. It's good to see you again.
It is really good to see you. We met several years ago in Denver at the Evolve Expo with Don Miguel. We had breakfast together.
Yeah.
And so it's really nice to reconnect and see all the beautiful things that you're doing.
Thank you.
Really,
likewise.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm excited to be part of this powerful project you're doing. Thank you for that initiative.
Thank you. I love what you're doing as well. You know, we're both teaching peace in different ways, but it's all the same truth, and it's a beautiful thing. So tell us a little bit about rise. What does rise mean when you rise in love?
Well, we have a saying about falling in love, and we all know how that feels. And gosh, it's such a powerful experience, and at the same time, in so many ways, it's completely misunderstood. And we tend to, as human beings, we tend to seek external expressions to bring about what we want to experience. So in the case of love, we tend to look for a someone that makes us feel that way. And then it gets so connected to the other person, and it's this falling in love, as opposed to realizing that love is something that is truly really what we are, and it's always present within and around us all the time, accessible, available, ready to be experienced, to be opened to just let it flow through us. And for me, the rising in love is realizing that all of this, that I am this present, this energy, this love that always is flowing. And if I can be open to that, there is a rising into a different vibration inside of myself, and then I am experiencing love. I am feeling as if I had fallen in love, but it's really a rising up of that energy, and it just fills my being, and it flows out through me, and everyone can perceive that. And when I am rising into that place within me, everything becomes love, because I see love everywhere. Even in pain and suffering, there's love present. It might sound strange, but that energy is present everywhere, and you can see it, and you can perceive it. So even when my life is in chaos, there's love present here.
Absolutely, yes. I love it. So we're basically falling in love with ourselves, recognizing who we are. And when we're looking for love with someone else, we're basically relinquishing who we are. We're looking for what we feel is perhaps lacking in ourselves. So for us to really be fully embodying the love that we are, then when we meet someone and we recognize that partnership, that divine connection, it's more of a rising in love with them, as opposed to I'm going to fall in love and find you're going to complete me and you're going to be my everything.
It's completely different. The rising and the falling, very, very different. It's just a symbology in using words trying to describe different ways of living life, but coming from inside out as opposed to outside in makes all the difference.
So you've had some amazing life-changing experiences. that, and you've had such an interesting life.
I
And
have.
I don't know all of it, but I know that you were a skydiver. You want to
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Many years ago, I used to spend all my free time jumping out of airplanes, and I loved it. It's anyone who feels the desire to pull to do it, just do it. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. I didn't necessarily realize back then why I was doing it. Now I can see that it had some very profound teachings in it for me. One was to not be afraid of being afraid. There is no way you jump out of an airplane without this body being in fear, at least not the first time. And it became very clear to me that fear is one of all the emotions, and I can choose to just move through that anyway. And skydiving taught me that. One of the other very profound pieces was the fact that you're falling for about 60 seconds from the time you leave the airplane to the time you pull your parachute. Is about 60 seconds or less, 50. And you can talk about those 50 seconds for hours with your friends. Time is completely different. And as you're in the free fall, there is only now. It really brings you to presence. There is no past, there is no future. You're right here, right now. And there is nothing more profound than living in the present moment. And I also think you're alluding to that I had a very specific situation with my skydiving, where I had an accident. And that particular day, my reserve parachute broke. You have two parachutes and both failed. And without a parachute, it's not very likely that you will survive. Obviously I did. I'm here talking with you, but
Amazing.
I shouldn't be. It's a miracle. But for me, that particular accident, which really was a very sophisticated suicide attempt, that's what I call it. I had longed to not be here for so long. I was miserable in my life. I had a fantastic life, but I was miserable. Nothing made sense. And I was longing to not be here. And life gave me the option. So in the airplane on the way up that day, on the way up before I even jumped out of the airplane, I had a vision. And I saw myself skydiving, and I saw myself needing to pull the reserve parachute, and it broke in my dream, in my vision. I'm still sitting in the airplane. And I have to tell you the story linear because language is linear. It's one word after the other, but my experience was a hologram. It was all at once. And I knew my reserve had broken, and I had to choose life or death. And no procrastination. Choose right now. Not in 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 months. Now.
Well, you don't have that time.
No. I'm still in the plane, but the vision was so real that I felt I was actually skydiving. And I knew I had to choose if I wanted to live or die. And the choice was simple. Absolutely, I want to live. Had you asked me on the ground, I would have said, take me home. But in this vision, I knew I wanted to live, and it had nothing to do with fear of death or anything like that. It was, if anything, was a love of life. And I saw my life with a clarity that I didn't have in my daily life. I saw how I was living from an incredibly victimized point of view, how I felt powerless and wasn't really living life. I was alive, but I wasn't living. It was almost like sleepwalking. No one who saw me in my life would agree with that. I was highly successful and active and have lots of friends and did all kinds of things. But in my inner experience, in my inner attitude to life, I wasn't alive. And I made a choice in the dream. Yes, I want to live, and I want to live full on and be completely aware and live my life. fully. I made a choice in a way, it felt very different. And it was a kind of choice that I had never made that kind of choice where every aspect of my being was aligned with the choice. Was it like a very clear yes? There was no hesitations, no buts or conditions. It was just completely yes. So I made a choice to live, and somehow I had this little rationale that added a sentence, and I want to live with a healthy body, knowing that the only way to possibly survive falling from 10,000 feet with a flapping broken parachute was with a very broken body. It's not pretty.
No.
So I added that I wanted to be healthy. And then my rational mind caught up with me sitting in the airplane, and what on earth are you thinking? And this is stupid. And I just pushed it out of my mind and went ahead and jumped out of an airplane. And exactly that happened. I had to pull the reserve, and the reserve broke. Just like I had seen in the vision in the plane. And the initial experience of that was a fear that I had not experienced. I was 30 years old at the time, and I had my fair share of scares and cars and different kinds of accidents, but nothing like this. When the body, the animal knows that it's about to die, there is nothing but terror. At least that was my experience. It was a completely different kind of fear.
Sure.
And then something changed, and I did not consciously do anything. I didn't decide anything. I didn't tell myself anything. I didn't take any action. Something just shifted. And there was no fear. And what I experienced, I didn't have any words for, and I still really don't. I was completely at peace, in acceptance of what was. I knew I was fine. I knew I was completely fine, but it had nothing to do with the fact that my body was falling to its imminent death. It was irrelevant. The death of my physical body was irrelevant. Whatever happens with the body is, I'm fine.
So you just basically surrendered and allowed what was going to happen.
That's what happened. My human mind surrendered. The personality that I normally identify myself with, Eva, the one who's here talking, well, anyway, that's a separate conversation, but the personality of Eva surrendered, and what was left was what I really am, consciousness, what I am, who is talking through Eva. And I got to experience what I really am. And we all have in moments, brief moments here and there, and as newborn babies, but I got to do it in an extreme situation and with an adult awareness. And it changed everything. Even if that was just a brief moment as I was falling, and once I smacked into the ground, obviously I survived, and that's the whole story in itself, but I smacked right back into identification with Eva again. But the memory of having been identified with what I really am was profound. It was so alive, and I wanted that back. If I can be falling to my death and be completely at peace, why would I ever worry about what someone says or feeling lack of this or that? Or why would I worry about anything at all if I can be at peace falling to my death?
Absolutely.
I wanted to live like that. That became my one passion, to live like that.
That's amazing, to have that experience. And
Yeah.
was your chute kind of faltering, semi-open? How could you have possibly survived a fall of 10,000 feet?
It came out and it looked fine for a while. I later learned that 6 lines had broken. So it collapsed to a little ball, and then it would come out and it would be flapping, and then it would collapse like a little ball, and that's back and forth. There is no real logical explanation how I survived. I smacked into the ground. Everything that could be in favor of supporting survival happened, but still, I didn't break a single bone, nothing.
Amazing.
And
how
that's
long
pretty
did it
much
take
impossible.
before you were up in the plane again, jumping?
10 days, as soon as I could. But that's always been my way. Like there wasn't really a fear at first. That's not true. There was some fear, but not any kind of paralyzing fear. I just knew I needed to get back on the horse, so to speak.
Sure.
And I did maybe another 20, 30 jumps. And then all of a sudden, when I thought that experience was behind me, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I was terrified for 3 or 4 jumps, like terrified.
Wow.
Completely terrified. When that fear that I had suppressed, when that finally surfaced, and I would cry and cry and cry and cry, and I still jumped for 3 or 4 jumps, and then it was done.
You were done with it. I did actually know someone who jumped, and she wanted to overcome her fear, and she jumped in tandem and died. They both died. Their chutes didn't open. So yeah,
it does happen. Accidents happen.
So it's an amazing experience. So that was one thing. And when did you begin your study of what was actually going to transform your life in a whole other way?
That's always been there for me. There's always been something inside of me pushing for something more, something else, something beyond this illusion we call life. So I've always been interested in searching and all of that. And the skydiving accident was really a gateway to really make that my focal point. I changed my life completely. Within a year, I had changed everything, and that became the focus. I need to figure out how to live with complete acceptance and peace no matter what. Beautiful. So I had experienced it, and now I wanted to live it. So it really started after the accident.
That's amazing. It's wonderful. So that became your drive. I know I experienced that as well, that searching, that looking for peace. For me, I was looking for healing, but then you had that experience as well because you developed Lyme disease.
Yeah. Careful what you ask for.
Right?
Yeah. I've had some amazing teachers in my life. I'm so blessed that these amazing masters keep showing up in different ways, and they've all been ruthless love in their own way. Especially Miguel was incredible that way, in his ruthless reflection all the time, 24/7 for many years, and it changed me a lot. And as powerful and as ruthless and as loving as he was and is, it's nothing compared to Lyme disease.
Lyme disease, yeah.
It's nothing compared to that.
Facing that physical debilitation. I know, because I have too. It can be so debilitating. Not that I've had Lyme disease, but I've definitely had my share.
Yeah, we all have.
Yeah.
We all have our journeys.
Our stories. But it's amazing the paths that are created for us and that lead us forward into a greater knowing, a greater peace, a greater manifestation of our essence of who we are.
Yeah.
So you developed Lyme disease and you felt like you were on your way off the planet.
Oh yeah. I did not want to be here. It was terrifying. The way Lyme is really an interesting illness, I guess. I don't know what to call it, but it's an umbrella name for many different bacterial infections. And depending on which of all these bacteria that your particular body is susceptible to and where it goes in your body, the symptoms can be so different. And for me, it's very much based in the central nervous system, and my symptoms were very cognitive, mental, emotional. They weren't so physical. So it would literally be like my personality would change. And through my work with Miguel, I had reached a place where I really felt I lived very much in the space of what I had experienced in my skydiving accident. Whatever was going on around me, I could stay in the center of the hurricane and be calm and happy pretty much no matter what. And I was so happy with that. Like, it's happening. I'm actually living what I experienced in my skydiving accident. And then, bam, there's Lyme. And because it, for me, was very affected my mind so much. And what happens, for instance, is that the bacteria would live in my brain, and the brain then feels that it's under attack, which it is, by bacteria. And the body goes into defense mode, fight or flight. We're under attack here. And it can't really, the mind can't understand where is the attack coming from. So it gets paranoid, seeking to, where is the attack? What's going on here? Because you feel, what I would feel is I would feel being under attack emotionally.
Sure.
But there was nothing to be afraid of. So paranoia, fight or flight, anxiety.
But no physical symptoms, just
very little. For me, it was very much like that.
How did you even find out that it was Lyme disease?
Oh, that took a couple of years.
You were going crazy.
Exactly. That was my fear. Like, what's going on with me?
Sure.
And people around me would ask, what's, like Miguel, he was used to this calm, centered, happy woman, and all of a sudden I'm like a wounded dog in a corner, like biting, becoming bitchy and aggressive and reactive, and like, what's going on? I don't know.
How did you figure that out? I mean, that just seems so crazy.
Many doctors, and finding someone who finally tested for it. And getting a diagnosis like that was a relief, because at least I'm not going crazy here.
Yeah.
It has an explanation. It still had incredible consequences in my life, because it's hard for people to understand.
Sure.
And even if they do understand, they don't have to take it. They don't.
How long did it take you to move through that?
I'm still dealing with it. It's better, much better.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. But where it took me, which is why it's so fascinating, because for me it was so emotional and mental, and it really affected my mind. And the mind is the tool. It's the tool for your creation of your own reality. It's the tool of how I held myself in peace. I was using my will and my awareness and my power to hold myself in the center of the hurricane. And what I didn't realize was that took tremendous amount of energy and constantly paying attention to myself and everything to hold myself there. There was no surrendering in it. And with Lyme, I couldn't control it because I wasn't creating the emotions, the bacteria was.
Mm-hmm.
Normally for 95, 98, 99% of what we're experiencing, we create with our mind. It's very little that's like natural emotions.
Sure.
Most of what our emotions are irrational mind created emotions. And if I create them, I can also change them. But with the bacteria, I couldn't. And I was seeking external solutions, medicines, alternative medicines, healings, but it was all outside. And that went on for years and very little helped. It wasn't until I started to surrender that it actually started to shift. So, okay, I can't change this. I have to find a way to live with insanity just coming over me at any moment. Because I could be completely calm and then the bacteria would become active and move into a place on my brain, and all of a sudden I would be terrified out of nowhere. And I would just have to find a way to live with this. And how can I embrace and find peace with this, not just from within myself, but the most scary thing was really seeing that how I show up affects how the world will respond to me, which of course, it's obvious. But when I can't control how I show up and you see the consequences of your irrational behavior and your life is falling apart like crazy, how can I be at peace with whatever happens? And when I started doing that, things started to change.
Yeah, that makes total sense, actually. Yeah.
Which was what I had asked for anyway. I want to be able to be at peace with anything. Anything. Yeah, right. I didn't think it was going to bring me line, but I would never have gone to the depth of myself, to the most painful hidden corners of my being without this. I wouldn't.
That makes total sense. And I totally get that, because I've had my crosses to bear also. So yeah. I get it, because they've actually been my greatest teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your greatest challenges are your greatest teachers. So I'm so thrilled that you're going to be leading a meditation tomorrow for our World Miracle Peace experiment. And I'm really looking forward to it. You have such an amazing background, and you also have a global peace initiative. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, that was something that just like this project came to you, the Global Peacemakers was a complete download, for lack of a better word. It's just something that wants to move through me, and it's a very basic idea. It's really that how we show up makes a difference, and we all matter. Every single human being matters. Every single interaction matters, and every meeting, be it with the cashier in the grocery store, or the bus driver, taxi driver, a boss, a president, a janitor, whoever, every meeting matters. And if enough people can have awareness of how they show up in every moment, and God knows I had a lot of practice with Lyme disease in paying attention to my own energy and what I bring to any situation. And if enough people can shift just a tiny little bit, the world would really change. It's a numbers game. It doesn't mean going from being completely unaware to enlightened, or going from sitting in a couch to becoming an activist in a war zone. It doesn't have to be extreme like that. It's the little things. Smile at the cashier. When you're in a grocery store and you're all happy, and all of a sudden a kid has a tantrum, or a couple breaks out in a fight, and now I'm feeling contracted and irritated or defensive or angry or guilty or whatever is happening in me. If I can pay attention to what's happening in me, and instead of just allowing that anger, for instance, to swirl around, just decide, no, I don't need to feel that. I can bring in peace here and just shift. If I can shift how I feel inside, I bring that to the situation, even if I don't speak a word or take any action. Just me being there, shifting my vibration to a more peaceful, even if it's shifting from rage to irritation, I'm still shifting.
Sure.
And if enough people do that, things will change. But that's the foundation.
Every instant
every moment
to be peaceful. We have
every
that
moment.
choice, regardless if people are angry, regardless if they're having a fight, or if they're threatening, whatever the situation, we can choose to be peaceful.
Yeah.
That's so
and someone who's an activist and believes that we really need to take hardcore action to make a change. Great. If that's your conviction and that's what you want to do, fantastic, do that. But walk in that demonstration with an open heart and happy energies. Don't walk with anger and because you're bringing anger.
Sure. Well, we are love. And when we're not embodying who we are, we're not really being true to ourselves. We're, and we just need to remove all of those other issues that are blocking that love. Then if we're feeling the anger, well, we have a choice right there. We can feel that anger or just decide, well, okay, I don't really want to feel that anger. I would rather feel peace. So we always have that choice.
The tricky thing, though, is that there's nothing wrong with the anger either. It's all part of being human. So when this way of reasoning that we're talking about, when that gets used in a way of, okay, it's not okay for me to feel anger, and we push down the anger or we block the anger, that is not good either. So if anger is arising within me, it's arising for a reason. It might be a past memory, or it might be that I actually need to pay attention right now. And I need to have the awareness which, but ultimately I need to acknowledge the anger and allow the anger, but I can embrace it with
love.
With love.
Yeah. You can totally embrace it with love, but I think it's also important to ask yourself, is this anger mine? Because I find about 85% it isn't. 85%
that's true too.
We carry other people's stuff. Well, this has really been so amazing. I could go on and on and on with you. And I'm really looking forward to your meditation tomorrow.
Yep.
Our World Miracle Peace experiment. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your wonderful stories of transformation. It's really been wonderful. Thank you.